Guys, we need your help stopping the government from doing something incredibly dangerous soon. So, a few years ago, a bunch of mothers took the Malaysian government to court to fight for citizenship for their foreign-born children. The issue they faced was this. The Malaysian constitution allows Malaysian fathers to pass their citizenship onto their children if they were born abroad, but Malaysian mothers have been prevented from doing the same because sexism. The good news is, the government agreed they would change the constitution, so instead of saying Malaysian fathers, the law would say Malaysian parents, thus allowing mothers to pass their citizenship onto their children as well. That's great, love it. The bad news is, the government is also proposing a bunch of other changes to the constitution that threaten to make things a whole lot worse for a whole lot of children, specifically stateless children. For those of you that don't know what this means, when someone is stateless, it means they're not a citizen of Malaysia or anywhere else. Now, as a citizen of a country, it means you have identification document. For Malaysians, we have our ICs. For other countries, it may be passports, driver's licenses, etc. Now, just think what you need an IC for. Opening a bank account, applying for a job, going to school, getting married, getting a driver's license, applying for a passport, and on and on and on. To do any of this, you would need an IC, and so if you're stateless and don't have one, you're pretty much screwed. According to an estimate by the Home Ministry in 2017, there were more than 40,000 stateless children in Malaysia, of which more than half were in Sabah. According to another source, over 9,000 children were still stateless in July 2023, and of that number, over 8,000 of them were children born out of wedlock, children who were adopted by Malaysian parents, as well as babies who were born here but abandoned. Right now, we already have laws to protect these children and prevent them from becoming stateless. More specifically, we have 3 sections in the Constitution that deal with this. The first one is this section that grants citizenship to anyone who was born here and who's not a citizen of any other country. This just means if we didn't give them citizenship, they wouldn't be able to leave to go anywhere else. We wouldn't be able to send them away to any other country, and so we might as well just give them citizenship if they were born here. The second one has to do with this one, which grants citizenship to abandoned babies whose parents are unknown. Because of course, if the baby's been abandoned and has no one to take care of them, it should be on the government to ensure that they can be seen by doctors, that they can go to school, etc. All of which they need documents for them to be able to do. Then lastly, the third one is this one, which grants citizenship to anyone born here who at least one of their parents is either a citizen or permanent resident, which again makes sense. If your parents from here, if they've lived their whole life here and you've lived your whole life here too, you should be Malaysian. The problem now is, even though the government is planning on changing the constitution to allow Malaysian mothers to pass their citizenship onto foreign-born children, they're also planning on getting rid of these first 2 sections, which will have repercussions on abandoned babies or children of Malaysian fathers who were born out of wedlock, and changing the third one so permanent residents will no longer be allowed to pass citizenship onto their children, thus condemning thousands of kids to be born as stateless in the future. The situation is a lot like being in a boat that has a hole in the side of it and then fixing it so you patch the hole, but at the same time blowing up an even bigger hole right next to that first one that you just fixed. But why are they doing this? To explain the decision, Home Minister Saifuddin Nasution basically said Malaysian citizenship should be subject to checks and procedures rather than freely given out to anyone, for example, the baby of a Rohingyan refugee and an Indonesian migrant. But it doesn't make sense to focus on migrants or refugees when these amendments are more likely to affect Malaysian children. And ironically, by amending the law, they're only creating more work for the Home Ministry, because now there's going to be more citizenship applications for these children, and they're putting it in the hands of random officers at JPN who now have the power to ruin a child's life or not just based on how they feel that day. Which is why, please, if you're watching this and you want to let the government know that these amendments are inhumane, sign a petition to ask the government to remove these regressive amendments from the incredibly important amendment allowing mothers to pass their citizenship to children born overseas. Because just think about it, if the government is capable of being this cruel to newborn babies, just what other atrocity would they be capable of?